Hey everybody, we're live now. So everybody, so no more saying offensive things. We got all of that out of our system before we got on the air.
I
So
mean,
now
I
we
mean, I mean, Star Freak Regulation 46A. No uncoded messages over communications.
boy, I love any kind of a live stream that starts with somebody randomly quoting Wrath of Khan. That it's going to be a good one.
Hey, just remember, Legislation 285. No good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, shall we break out the Ferengi rules of acquisition
Yeah.
too, or what?
Let's go.
Yeah,
We'll just turn it into a Star Trek poetry slam. Just start reading quotes
my
from.
favorite
Once you
songs
have
are
their
about
money,
war and
you
peace.
never give
Give
it
it
back.
back. War is good for business. Peace is good for business.
Or if you want
Well,
to,
walls
or if you want to for the Cardassians and just say that every crime is death.
These guys. Is it even fair? Should they even?
Oh, it's simple. You bribe them.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's
Well,
how
I
we do
wanna-
it, don't we?
Yeah, because the Federation is an allegory is a stand-in for the United States.
Either that, or we find a coup and overthrow the
again,
Democrat
right now,
flavor.
I don't actually think it's an allegory for the United States anymore because it's so different
Not-
from what you describe.
Not back.
anymore.
Yeah.
In some ways.
In some ways,
Yeah, but
was
again,
gonna
my
say,
question
or at
is,
least the-
should
at least
they
the
even
United
discuss peace with
Nations.
those guys?
The Federation's president isn't as purely evil.
Hey, Matthew, it's you.
Hey, man, whoever the
hey.
Federation's president is at the moment, we haven't even. They haven't even caught us up on that since like Deep Space Nine. I don't think.
I mean, talking about
just
Star
read
Trek,
it.
it feels like the president is just like a decorative, he's there for the face.
That was an
And most
interesting sort of.
decisions are.
First, we have to root the bugs out of a few admirals, chase him back to the president, and then blow his head up.
I just read it.
A weird feature a lot of Trek, and I think it was Anderson for dramatic or whatever, is that internal Federation politics are basically non-existent. Right?
Yeah.
You never get a sense that some kind of actual democratically accountable entity.
It feels extremely federalist. It feels like every planet is on its own.
That's why Republicans love it.
Sort of a military
So.
Yeah.
dictatorship.
Yeah, there's
Well,
a Federation
because-
president, and it seems to always be the same general person
Yeah.
for most of the time.
And he's always black, it seems to me.
And they often use they use Starfleet and the Federation interchangeably a lot. Like they treat them as the same thing. When
I mean, it's from outside, probably that's true, but from inside, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I mean, people even, if I don't make that distinction clearly enough in my videos, sometimes I get comments from people who are like, Starfleet and the Federation are different. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll tell the people who write the show because they refer to them interchangeably a lot. I know they shouldn't. They're supposed to be, it's like the United States and the military. They're separate.
How much of that evolved though over the course of the series? Because I feel like that distinction didn't exist as much during the original series or as much even in TNG.
The only time I've
No.
ever seen anything discussed was with Enterprise, with the whole Mako thing being brought onto the Enterprise, and there was a little bit of stress about, should we have armed troops basically on a spaceship, that kind of
I
thing.
mean,
was the only time.
it's Enterprise. It was much earlier. It's much closer
And that was
to what
before the
we know as
Federation,
is.
Yeah, that was
Before the
technically
Prime
the
Directive,
Federation.
before a lot of the structure of both Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets was established.
I do think it's
like real world timeline as opposed to the Star Trek timeline.
I do think it's something that they were making up as they went along. Like I mean, because even in Deep Space Nine, when Deep Space Nine had a couple of episodes that took place on Earth that dealt with quasi political matters on Earth, they didn't really draw that strong of a distinction. I mean, they had the Federation president, but the Federation president was sort of dictating unilaterally what Starfleet policy and using Starfleet, the way that like a very authoritarian leader would use the military, but of course, but the Federation isn't supposed to be like that. But I think it's just that the writers didn't, they were just like, Federation, Starfleet, whatever, it's all the same thing. The president's in charge. And, it's not, in theory, it's not supposed to be like that.
I actually took it that
picture of the internal democratic politics of Bejor than
Yeah.
of Earth or the Federation.
True.
True.
So
We never hear, like, during the whole Maquis thing, we never hear people talking about, like, I mean, even as they
imagine the elections in
stand
the
with the
Federation.
monkey.
You just like
don't agree with.
you just wake up one morning and you have your pad or something, and it's like it has this question: who do you vote for? And then you just press the right button, and that's all. It's counted because I mean it's future. The encryption must be like crazy.
Exactly.
So-
If they don't have 100% voter turnout.
Yeah, there's more overhead to the encryption than there is to the message.
Jesse just put out a video yesterday that was great. I think it was yesterday or the day before, that was about her totally non-political video, and it was all about how the Kai took over.
Yeah. Which I think that's like a good example of, they just do whatever they do whatever they need to do for the story. Because like I remember that episode. Actually, I watched that episode not that long ago, and I watch it now, and I'm like, so wait a minute, that's how Bajor's government is structured. I
actually watched it last night. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is that the one where this guy didn't want to give up farming equipment, so
Yes.
Okay. Well, I watched that last night for the first time.
Shakar.
Yeah, and it's like it's like, so if the first minister is out of office, the Kai can take over? Like they can just appoint the leader of the church to lead the government? That doesn't seem right.
I just want to say
enough.
I'm kind of relieved.
There's Shakar, and then there's that three-parter with Frank Langella.
Let Nick talk.
Sorry, I just want to say I'm kind of relieved that we were able to delve into Star Trek this time, because for a couple months now, there's something that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
So, First Contact. It's still probably my favorite Star Trek movie, just because it has so much packed into it. And just the scene where the Vulcans touch down and this emotional music is playing. It's like, oh my gosh, humanity is taking its first steps into a wider world. We're finally like leaving our infancy. But then the scene becomes unintentionally funny when you remember, wait a second, isn't touch like much more sexual for Vulcans than it is for everybody else? So when Cochrane reaches out to give him a handshake, he's essentially offering that ambassador a steamy makeout session.
Yeah.
He seems to be into it. He just looks at him like, And then you see the crew of the Enterprise in the background. They're all just grinning as they know. Especially
Earth is not like the first place they are making contact with.
There's a really, really funny Tumblr post that that goes into detail about that, about like what a freak that Vulcan ambassador must have been, and how the Vulcan authorities must have done some cultural research about Earth, beforehand, and known our customs, and they knew like, okay, when they meet people, they like to shake hands, so they picked like the biggest freak they could find from the Vulcan embassy.
Well,
and he's like, oh, you're gonna love this.
I was gonna bring that up.
You're gonna love.
I love how they did that Enterprise episode. Yeah.
Yes, right. Where it's like,
I mean, guys, don't you think Vulcans sometimes make first contacts with people who actually use steamy makeouts as like?
I mean, what are you supposed first contact with Delta was like?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Sorry, just one last thing I want to add. What was funniest to me though was again the reaction of the Enterprise crew, but especially Riker's. Because I have to wonder how many Vulcans has he literally bumped elbows with?
It's like you just see.
I will tell you that is now, that whole situation with the Vulcans is now entirely in my headcanon, along with Baby as Armus.
You're talking about the music that was playing. So think of it this way. So while that great music's playing, I guess it was Gary Goldman, but then in the Vulcan ambassador's head, it's like bow, wow, like
yes.
Good point, CO6026. Didn't he turn out to be like Spock's ancestor? And didn't that explain a lot?
I don't think that was ever established in canon, but I think that maybe there was like a novel or a comic or something that suggested that, which that's fine, but I'm not like, I don't like everybody being related. I'm not a big fan of a small galaxy kind of storytelling.
I thought that the guy who made first contact with the Earth was actually like the Saval guy from Enterprise. I thought like it would make sense because he's like the right age and he's like the ambassador.
I think my
he
favorite.
Be the guy who made
that maybe. Yeah, but yeah, it's just like people said that they said, well, what if the first Vulcan to shake Cochrane's hand was like an ancestor of Spock's, and it's like there's more than 5 people in the galaxy. Like, not everybody has to be.
Did they try to do that
what is
with
the population of Vulcan?
Yeah.
Did they try to do that with Worf?
It was probably established somewhere. Was it like several billion at that point already?
It's got to be.
That's
Yeah.
about Worf. Colonel Worf is Lieutenant Worf's grandfather.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same actor.
Trial, right? I think that's when people say, that it's.
That's the same actor.
The more you ask for that, the more you get Star Trek falling into the trap that it regularly falls into, which is portraying an entire planet as a monolith.
Yeah.
Well, Here's one thing you think about it though, as far as him being able to be Spock's progenitor. Depending on how was it 300 years later when Spock's born?
About 300 years, I guess, or 200.
Yeah.
200.
So actually, depending on how prolific the Vulcans are with reproducing, and depending on the population, it might be. But then it's not that unusual a thing, though. If you think about it, you go back, 7 generations, think about how many, hundreds of thousands of ancestors you have at that point. So, you go back far enough.
I mean, like 5% of the people in the world are like direct descendants of freaking Genghis Khan.
Right.
Yes, there's that.
As an Iranian, I probably am.
Is it that Tom Paris wasn't supposedly related to, Nicholas Locarno?
Locarno, yeah.
How come they weren't related yet? The actor who played, the guy that was with Kirk's trial, he was supposedly related with Worf.
Yeah.
People that look exactly the same, have similar personalities. Nope, nothing to do with each other. Not even a bastard father or that kind of thing. Nothing funny, at all that they could have done with that. They could have done an in joke or something,
I think with Duncan O'Neill, they just when it came to Voyager, they just wanted some good looking hot shot flyboy to
doesn't move. Rick Berman, all your directions.
But I think my favorite Star Trek movie is Star Trek 4. I have a sweet spot for that movie because the soundtrack sounds like Christmas.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
And I like San Francisco, and I actually dressed up in my Starfleet uniform in San Francisco. So I have a spot for Star Trek.
I mean, it's probably the best city to walk around in Starfleet uniform.
It also gave the cast a chance to swing out again like they did first with the Trouble of Tribbles. Well, I've forgotten order. Well, Trouble of Tribbles, and also a piece of the action. And for anybody who's seen even a fraction of that, the documentary that they did on Galaxy Quest, my impression is that everybody in TNG wanted to, take themselves not so seriously, and they never did. And it was probably the single biggest mistake that TNG ever made by not doing.
I agree. And I mean, when Patrick Stewart went to the UK in 1994, he never knew of Red Dwarf or something like that. So he flipped into a channel in 1994 and came across a scene where the character said, "Step up to red alert." And of course, his panics, they're ripping off Star Trek Next Generation, went to the phone, he's lawyer. But the next line was, "Are you absolutely sure, sir? It does require changing the bulb." And then he was frozen in place and was like, "What?" And started to watch the show, and then left the phone as it is and became a fan of Red Dwarf, and wished that they could bring in some of the silliness from Red Dwarf, which was a sci-fi comedy, and poking fun at Star Trek, of course, into Next Gen. But now Lower Decks, we have Lower Decks now.
Yeah.
Some of the things about Star Trek that I didn't get was, especially in the TOS, what was the Nazi episode? Patterns of
Force.
Yeah, I know, but what were they trying to say? Is it just Nazis?
Parallel evolution. I think was it right?
No. It's about that scientist guy who made the experiment. He basically came to that planet.
Yeah, but I thought that was part of it, was that every culture goes through a Nazi phase.
No. It was actually an Earth scientist who went there and recreated the Nazi regime.
I think
he considered it efficient.
The idea of it is actually the idea of it is actually, they didn't do as good of a job with sending the message in that episode as maybe they could have, but the idea that they had was a really good one, I thought, because the whole reason why that Nazi planet was created in the first place was because the scientists, the Federation scientist who created that society believed that if you took like the hatred out of the Nazi system and implemented it, without the underlying hatred and bigotry, then it would be like a blueprint for a good society. And
he's like chopping to like tear that to shreds.
Yeah, and he was wrong. Like the episode showed that he was wrong. That even if you don't
Nazi system and take the hatred out, you basically get fascism.
Yeah, exactly. And the hatred automatically sort of fills itself in because it's an authoritarian system.
They don't work without an enemy.
Right, because organizing society against minorities is very effective. It easily happens because people have biases.
Yeah, it does. It's very effective.
Some people have said the Borg were an analogy to communism. Is that true?
I don't think so. I am actually a communist, so I think what that comes from is that like people's fear of communism and Red Scare with the USSR, as if it's like a collective hive mind, individual thoughts and something like that. So it's the hive mind aspect of it that people think is communism, which is why they think Borg is analogous to
because
communism.
every single example of communism we had has turned into that.
I will also say, as a communist, we haven't had an example of communism actually. I will say.
On Facebook, you tried carrying one.
Solving corruptions of it, right?
We have countries that try to strive to communism. Joe, you about to say something?
No,
the other Joe.
Oh. The other Joe.
I actually have a fun story. The Borg were they're essentially, a lot of the ideas fired is from a a Warhammer 40k faction referred to as the Tau, which are also hive-minded and are implicitly like coded communist. Like a lot of their symbols are like space hammers and like
and sickles.
Robot sickles and
not
what do you call it? So there is a connection, but it's not a direct connection. Like if it were implicit, it was it just happened.
Well, also I would say that like the Borgs kind of like was modeled off of the Cybermen, or maybe they had similar ideas to the Cybermen in like
they are very similar actually, but
the
Borg are kind of different. The Borg probably delve more into the whole fear of extreme body altering technology fear.
I think
it's like it's bodily horror thing. Yeah,
I have to wonder how much of that is thrown in with that as a fear of a assertion of individuality.
That's what I was going to say.
Would Borg be more or less scary if they just looked like straight up regular people? All their technology would be like.
Then you're talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Well, I've always said. Well, I've always said the Borg were kind of like emo. So.
Well, it's one thing that's. This is really heavy. What I'm about to say is kind of serious, but I have seen some readings where people have compared being assimilated by the Borg to a form of rape, because your body is being violated against your will and all that, your agency is being taken away from you, and of course it's incredibly physically invasive. And when you look at it from that angle, wow, just makes the Borg even scarier.
And I think it's all of those things combined. But speaking of monolithic, scary autocrats, the Republicans are really out of hand, and Trump's really scary right now.
Joe, you have a talent for understatement.
The Republicans are fascists. The Republicans are fascists. Let's just call it what it is.
Oh yeah, they are. There's no doubt.
Guys, before you delve into that too much, can I just ask you one simple question?
Sure.
Where I live, basically we have a lot of oppositionary people, and they sometimes fight each other. But probably like 60% of them, probably most of them are like pro-LGBT, pro-women's rights. But some of them are kind of what we call right-wing. It's center to right, probably. It's traditionalist sometimes. Actually, the guy that was killed like several years ago, he was a big oppositionary leader, and his party was literally named, if I translate it correctly, like, was it the right choice or the right side? It was something like that. So he was like, he was positioning himself as like a right, like a person on the right. The thing that they are the most like right side about is that they are all like free market capitalists. Like they actually think that capitalism will make what happens right now much better, and I think it probably will. Everything is better than this, but it's where we move next. But actually, some of them are left wing, and I don't know how to support a lot of them. They are not as atheist as I am. They are not as how would I say that? Not as progressive, probably. They just want, they have one thing in common. They want this power removed, and that's why they fight together. But after they are done, if they are successful, I don't know where we go. That's the thing. And a lot of people are afraid of nationalists, and I am afraid of nationalists because, like, in a lot of like Eastern Europe countries that went through their revolutions, actually some nationalists came to power. That's the thing. And some of them are not as scary, but
the first problem you've got in the midst of all of that is who bells the cat being Putin. I mean, Putin is in there, and he's dug. To use the phrase of Jesse Ventura, he's dug in there like an Alabama tick. And
I think the question, though,
digging him out is going to be a job.
Isn't the question, though, that he's asking about the union of these opposition forces? And I'm thinking back to, and again, I don't mean to keep like bringing back my Iranian American heritage, but I go back.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
To the Iranian Revolution in '79, when
it was Muslim, actually.
Well, the Islamic Revolution, but that's who took over. But it was the revolutionary forces were not just the Islamists. They were also communists. They were also anti-monarchists. They were also social liberals. It was a conglomeration, and the people that ultimately got power and consolidated power were the religious.
Yeah. In fact, I
lot of that.
I remember when that was happening. I was about 10, and I remember like a lot of people think like the Shah was deposed and Khomeini came in. I'm sure you know otherwise. That I remember like Abu Hassan Bani Sadr, and there's like a few other people. There was just this chain of different leaders as different factions got in charge, and eventually the Islamists took over. But the thing is, the problem you had there, the same problem I think. I'm sorry, the guy from Russia. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Vovocat 17, Vladimir. It's Vladimir.
And where he's got, and what was starting to happen here is when you have an autocrat, it makes the normal debate that you have, where we can debate, right wing, left wing, socialism, communism, capitalism, whatever. You can't have that debate at all.
Yeah, it's basically what they say, and I believe them. But then again, our main oppositionary leader, who just got poisoned recently, probably heard of that. He is kind of an asshole, actually. He has some serious autocratic personality to himself. He was saying out loud some phrases like, "Who is not with us is against us," and go fuck yourself, whoever don't
One thing with that expression in the context you're in, though, is that basically my whole thing is, because I see our government, the Trump and the Republicans going down the autocratic road, that right now, okay, Geek and I are even though we're both on the left, we're very far apart, but I'll stand with Geek to fight Trump, because if Trump wins again, then we don't get to have that discussion about how left we should be or how center.
That's basically, there's another problem, because the main argument that the loyalists to the power use is that if you have a revolution now, basically the Nazis come to power, because again, our oppositionary leader I talked about, he's not like the biggest supporter of the right wing, but he was taking part in what was called the Russian March, and the Russian March is an extremely nationalist march. It's what you would call alt-right, basically. It's almost Nazi, and he took part in it because it's like revolutionary and stuff. They don't say outright they are Nazi, but they kind of are, and he was supporting it. And I don't know, how do we support that guy? He kind of says a lot of right things. a lot of correct things.
It may just be that a political schema derived from the seating arrangements of the French Assembly in the 18th century is
right,
geographically unbounded utility.
Who knew that was going to stick this long?
Also, just remember, on the left, we will constantly debate each other. I don't know how to fix that. If you say, like, Tolstoy's better than Marx, you're going to get a debate somewhere. It's just how we are, sadly. It's sometimes it's history, like the anarchists don't trust Marxist-Leninists for legitimate reasons. Sometimes it's personal interactions. I have met Marxist-Leninists or tankies that, like, are transphobic. And no, I do not want to work with transphobes. And so it's a lot of different things. Yeah, I don't know how to resolve with like the constant left infighting, other than like try not to do it as much. But if it's something like that happens, there's a line that I cannot cross.
Some random geek. The way we need to resolve it is we need to prevent this genocide and Holocaust that's going to unfold if we keep fighting amongst ourselves. It's that
true. Yeah.
I mean, yes. I think that like the internal debate is fine. My only like concern with people on the left and just progressive people, no matter however rigidly we want to define who gets to say they're on the left and who doesn't, but like progressive people in general, like. I'm fine. I think it's vital that we debate each other and we disagree and we argue. But what troubles me from time to time, especially during election years like this one, is when the wolf is at the door and we're still fighting each other, instead of worrying about the wolf. You know what I mean? Like that's what concerns me. It's not that we shouldn't fight, we shouldn't argue, we shouldn't debate. No, of course we should. But when we're
only
a month from an election,
in a burning house.
Yeah, exactly. When we're a month from an election, it's like, all right, let's worry about this right now, and then when it's over, hopefully, if it goes our way, we can go right back to debating each other and fighting each other, because that's absolutely essential.
I'm going to be fighting against neoliberalism.
I mean, that's an argument I'm having with a lot of my blue state friends, because I live in Pennsylvania, so the argument with most people get it that among my liberal friends, guys, we just got to get on board.
Guys, you talk so much about making the right choice at the election, and I'm just sitting here thinking, damn, how can I help those guys? I mean, can I do anything? Can I whatever? Why can't
honestly, probably we probably don't want another Russian doing anything.
I'm sitting that.
Nothing personal.
It's got to be more than voting. There's practice, organizing, unionizing their workplaces, direct action, and direct action is more than it's not. Voting is not direct action. No.
You know what would probably help us is knowing more about the mentality of what we're facing with the disinformation from Russia, because it's a totally different way of thinking that. We honestly, here in the United States, we have too much of a romanticized things will go back to normal idea.
I mean, you guys always keep saying about Russia, and I don't think those guys you're talking about are necessarily Russia. I don't associate myself with those guys. I mean, I kind of like my country, and those guys, they're the parasites. They're like they don't have anything to do with this place actually, except for where they are born. They have all their money and all their property. It's foreign. It's Europe.
It's like that wonder.
Like what the CIA's mentality is, or like how NSA decides to target. That's it would of co-nationality.
By the way, we each have one NSA satellite apiece now, just because of this live stream.
Vladimir, insofar as what you had to say, I'm reminded of this wonderful line from Alan Sherman's Peter and the Commissar. When he's talking about commissars, they get to wear the uniform, they get to wear the medals, and they sit on the handlebars while everybody pedals.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing I thought was kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of bizarre. Remember way back when, particularly when the right wing thought America was great because we didn't spy on our people like the Soviets did.
They started spying on us in the 80s. Yeah, they ramped up that a lot, actually.
We do McCarthyism.
In the age of the cell phone, everybody gets to spy on everybody, depending upon your level of technological expertise.
Well,
everyone
Facebook,
has their
they'll
own
start
personal
collecting our
tracking
data.
device.
Yeah, which is why I'm not on Facebook.
Well, can I ask a question on that point? I think
Sure.
it's interesting. We were talking about earlier about contact tracing and whatnot, and the Apple Google API is coming out to more and more states nowadays.
It's already in the OS, the operating system of Apple and Android have it embedded now.
Right.
And that 30-foot tracking is not just to report who's had tested positive and negative, but they can also use it at protests to see who you're working with and investigate the trees and all that stuff. That's all.
Yeah, it's not situational specific at all. Why would it be situation specific?
Exactly.
So leave your phone home if you go to a protest.
There's that, yes.
It's just such a shame because contact tracing, especially in this era, is kind of important. How did South Korea get the handle on the coronavirus so fast?
Yeah.
How did Germany do it? Contact tracing.
Contact tracing.
South Korea is not exactly libertarian,
But South Korea had a more collectivist kind of like culture, as it were, which Rebecca Watson mentioned in one of her videos. There was a study that did that, as opposed to like America, where anything that's collective is communism and that's bad.
My point was just that they knew who was near somebody who had COVID, and they were able to tell those people, hey, maybe just stay inside for a couple weeks. And now they're able to open again. Now people can go out and about because they know who has COVID.
And that's kind of where I'm at, that I feel almost like, given the pandemic, that I have a social responsibility to give up that privacy that normally I otherwise would not have given up.
This is what I'm saying. They want more people sick, so you will willingly give up having privacy. You'll always have a Bluetooth 30-foot radius. They'll know who you're talking to, who you're communicating with. All the metadata will be reported on that. And it's a QR code system. So just like China, they want you to have to get the health passports. They want you to have to show, I have been tested, I'm clean, I can go into this building. That's the whole idea. They need more people sick. That's why they're not doing enough.
This is what I do for a living. I'm a privacy and surveillance think tank nerd. And so I actually threw a link in the description to something a colleague and I wrote about contact tracing. And I think, an important thing to note about the Google Apple protocol is that the way it works is anonymized and decentralized. And it's not that there are no theoretical...
There's no such thing with all the hacks.
Actually, that's funny thing about mass surveillance. Like 99.9% of the people won't even
let him finish.
Let him finish.
What it does is it gives it a series of random anonymized identifiers that are shared between the phones and that are never gathered in a centralized place. So what you're doing is a random string that is associated with your phone for 15 minutes that it is then broadcasting to phones nearby. And then when someone goes and gets a positive COVID diagnosis, their locally stored log of randomized anonymous identifiers that they've been used is pushed to a kind of public cache of IDs of someone who's had COVID. And then again, the only locally stored archive of phones that have broadcast their identifiers to you is checked on each local device against the cache of positive COVID diagnosis IDs. And then you get a diagnosis locally on the phone. So the way it's functioning, there is not really a centralized depository of who's been in contact. And because it uses Bluetooth rather than location, these identifiers aren't really linkable to individuals. So as a professional privacy advocate, the way they have designed this is as privacy protective as you could possibly do something like this.
I'm going to have to talk to you offline separately about this because unfortunately they just announced that the deep web is no longer safe. You saw that news. So if they can crack the deep web with the VPNs and Tor, it's made the news recently. You guys have not seen this?
So wait a minute. So where am I supposed?
The FBI came out and said we have cracked the deep web. We arrested 171 people on the new Silk Roads. There's no way you can hide from us now.
So where am I supposed to hire assassins?
I would like to add something to this.
Go for it.
So I've been thinking about what's been going on with everything, and I have in my mind, I have war game that the election of 2020 could lead to some kind of civil war.
This is not news.
Not with drones.
Let him talk. Let him talk.
Well, wait. Because either way, there's going to be violence in the streets. Because even if he's winning by a large amount, there's going to be protests from the left that they're going to say that the votes were stolen from them, they were cheated out of it, all that stuff. And then once the mail-in votes come in for Biden, or supposedly for Biden, it's going to then put the election back in Biden's favor. And if he ultimately wins the election, Biden that is, there's going to be protests on the right fighting the protesters on the left. And then Trump's going to take it to court, so it's going to get litigated. And if it comes down to Florida, that's why Governor DeSantis passed that bill, because he's thinking that Tallahassee could become Seattle.
Yep.
That's why. So he didn't do that in a vacuum. It's a very strategic move he did. So,
just like in 2000.
Right. Or this could be worse than 2000.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Can it be like Belarus?
Yeah. This is something that Trump has been working towards since before the 2016 election, talking about rigged elections and everybody's against him. Nobody likes him. Everybody hates him. He can go eat worms.
He's saying our election in 2016 was rigged, and he won.
Exactly.
Well, here's one thing I just want to address to what Jeffrey's been saying. I looked at the article he quoted here. It doesn't specifically mention what technology they quote unquote cracked. But what I do know, and more likely the way that they've traced people, is that a lot of stuff on dark web is with cryptocurrency and blockchain. Unfortunately, for people who are really big into cryptocurrency, because there's a record of everywhere that block has been. This was something that was 3 years ago. They said they figured out how to trace people using.
Joe, you're proving my point. Blockchain is a record of everywhere the transaction has been. Yeah. COVID tracing is a record of everywhere you have been. That's my point. Exactly my point. Thank you.
But that's not though. But what he was just saying though is that it's not doesn't connect the same way that blockchain does. So
any anonymized
he's an expert and you're not. He's an expert and you're not. So I mean,
boys.
It can be a privacy. I have the technology background.
Okay. So do I, but I'm not an expert in cybersecurity. Neither are you.
Okay, so
he is. We're not.
Okay, guys, we probably should shift topics because it's all fun and stuff. But again, I'll probably say that 99.9% people won't even notice that because it will just go to advertisers.
There's that too. And that's the thing.
I mean, the biggest buyers of that kind of information is advertisers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
they pay like a ton of money to know that, to know what you like. And I mean, advertisement. How does it harm you? It's annoying, but that's kind of all.
So
I mean,
activists who should worry.
I don't think. Well, I was just going to agree with what Vladimir said. Like, I don't say that it's completely harmless, but I tend to not get as up in arms over it, like as some people
guys,
get.
How does it work on the Enterprise? You basically ask the computer where is crewman X, and the Enterprise is basically like.
On the Enterprise, there's no privacy at all. Like apparently, the computer will just tell anybody where you are at any time.
I mean, probably not everybody. Remember how it was like in lower decks. Like I request emergency transport, like clearance code Mariner 88, and on the back side of it is like, who are you? Clear this channel.
I just posted in the chat.
It probably doesn't work for everyone, probably for higher staff.
You guys might want to look at that link.
Yeah.
That's just part of this. And I've been studying COVID-19, our response to it for the last 9 months. So I do not like being dismissed like you just did.
That sounds like Nephilim free. You sound like Nephilim free.
Joe, I don't like being dismissed like
all right,
that.
All right, don't
read the research.
Nobody dismissed you. We just had a talk about it, and that's all.
No,
I believe we're not reaching any conclusions here.
There's no excuse for that. Not with all that we know was going on after Edward Snowden and all that. No, you don't go saying, the privacy guys got everything right. No, that's not the case.
Nobody's got everything right.
We'll talk to Edward Snowden about how much lack of privacy we have. Everything is
we're really
I'm not giving up my HIPAA right to keep my medical history private. Okay, COVID safe is basically broadcasting whether or not you have been tested positive or negative to other people, and it will be hacked, like I just showed you. I also shared the privacy settings that are shared from our government. That paragraph that I just pasted in there. Security tip, ST05015, understanding Bluetooth technology. You're not supposed to leave it on. It could be blue snarfed. That could be hacked. Everything could be, it's all out there. I don't know why this is even a fight.
Well, I just
this is going on for a long time, but nobody's died.
Well, in good news,
oh my God, we're already at the nobody's died part of the defense.
Okay, I'm going to echo something that Julian just said in our private chat here, which is this is a bad forum for this discussion.
Yeah.
So let's move on to something else.
If it may say something else.
Again, you were asking me about dash cams, so I
yeah.
the way right now, and we should keep moving then, because again, I don't have one personally for reasons. But the thing is, today I got into a car accident. It was a small car accident. I was hit from behind. No, nobody's hurt. It's like my fender is like broken, and I'll have to repair it. But that's all. I basically got hit. It was like a jam, and I was standing on my brake pedal, and then I got hit, and the guy behind me was like moving from lane to lane, and I looked at it, and it was kind of obvious who is to blame there. But so I called the police instantly. They arrived like an hour and a half later, because when nobody's hurt here, the traffic police is not moving too fast. I mean, I got a really, really nice cop who arrived. He was like a totally fun, nice guy, and he was like, "Yeah, look at that. That's kind of obvious who's to blame." But the guys who collided into me, they were actually 4 guys in the car. It was a pretty cheap car, and they were kind of passive aggressive about it. So I was kind of scared in the beginning, because again, a lot of you've seen the dashcam videos. A lot of like Russian car crashes, even small ones, sometimes turn violent because everybody is aggressive about their car here. And basically,
in America?
I'm okay.
Wow.
Yeah, but then the thing is, those guys didn't even have insurance, like the basic one, the required one. They didn't have it. So basically, the cop told me that you're lucky that you have an extended insurance, basically an insurance that covers everything, not just your responsibility, which is like obligatory here. The obligatory insurance here is the one that covers the responsibility. If you damage someone, then you have this insurance for whatever it costs you. But they didn't have that, so I'm lucky to have mine. And the thing is, that reminds me a lot about those guys just wanted to pay me money and leave. That's the thing. And that's really common here. And a lot of people agree, but you shouldn't. The thing is, a lot of car crashes in Russia, not a lot of them, but some percentage of them, is what you call like a car crash scam. It's basically really organized guys who do this intentionally, and then do this in some weird way that basically you're like you'll owe them money after that. They pretend they put up like a theater show, and they lie and stuff. So basically, like a road scam is a big thing in Russia, and that's how the dash cams became so popular, because then you have video, you have proof of what happened.
Is that the thing where I saw like people would like back into somebody, and so they'd say, "Oh, this person rear-ended me," but they purposely backed into them to get from
that's the thing, but that's probably the simplest thing. It's probably the least dangerous part of the road scam. It's not, nobody's even getting profit from that. The most dangerous are like the people are coming out of your car, they take knives and instruments, and they make purposeful scratches on your car, and you can't do anything with them because there are probably 4 people in there. And somebody lies on the road in front of you and says, "I've been hit," and stuff. Basically, they sue the heck out of you as a scam, and then you owe them a lot of money.
It does happen here.
Yes.
Not as big as it used to be. In fact, for a while there were organized teams that had multiple cars, and what they would do is they box you in, and then someone.
Yeah, they do that here too. They do that here as well.
And then hit the brakes, and then you make you crash into them, and then now there's an incident.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that.
But again, it's more about them getting profit, and they're not getting much profit if they just like have a collision. They get profit when they report some like weird damage or somebody getting hit. That's when. Sometimes they're just very aggressive. Sometimes they just get out of their car with golf clubs and go smash up your car. That happens too. I haven't seen that one personally, but I've seen videos at least. and there are recent videos like in Moscow right now. That's scary. That's why getting in a car crash here is pretty scary. But again, that was a small thing for me. I'm okay.
Yeah, Joe. Sometime back, you and I were talking about dash cams. Did you finally invest in one, and if so, what did you get?
I haven't yet. I hooked up with somebody online, and I have not had a chance to follow up. There's I'm in a black-owned, actually 2 black-owned groups on YouTube. Basically, black people trying to support black-owned businesses since we don't seem to get support.
Aren't like dash cams forbidden in some states? Is it not the case?
No.
Where I know there are places in the world where they are strictly prohibited on the basis that the people on the road did not agree for you to film them.
Now, see, in the U.S., you can film anything you can see from public place. You can film it. You don't need permission. You can't use it necessarily for commercial purposes,
right?
But you can use it for your own purposes. So actually, what I want to do is I'm going to get my car completely covered. I'm not just a dash cam. I want interior cams. I want cams in the trunk, and I want cams in the back, underneath the seats. Because
Joe, are you going to be driving around in the Google Maps van?
You can make money doing that.
It's going to seem.
I mean, I don't want to be a fanboy or something, but this guy needs a Tesla. This guy really needs a Tesla.
The thing is,
it's covered in
the
cameras.
reason why is because police have been known, and police have caught themselves on their own body cameras planting drugs. And so this way, I want something that if I get stopped by the cops, a cop tries to plant something on me, there'll be a video record.
Again, planting drugs here is a massive problem, probably worse than in the US actually, because here they have like something of a plan for people to get jailed for like drug abuse. And I mean it's blatant. They planned exactly the amount that.
Well, no, it happens here, particularly if you're black or brown of some sort.
I mean, it happens to everybody here. We don't have that division here.
Yeah. Well, here in I think like North Florida, a cop was accused of doing that, planting drugs on someone, and this I think it was a white couple too. So yeah.
But there was one cop who caught himself on his own body camera. He
forgot to turn that one off.
Well, he did turn it off, but the thing is, when you turn it off, it continued to film for 12 seconds. That was to avoid exactly that, to avoid a cop turning it off and doing something untoward and then turning it back on. Well, he caught himself planting drugs. And apparently that they had to go back and look, and apparently he had the highest rate of catching people with drugs on them, and they had to go back and spawn all the cases.
Like not only caught in the act of planting drugs, but also caught in the actual active act of obstruction of justice.
Yeah. But again, there it's like your cops are probably doing it on a lower level. Here it's institutional. It's like from up top. It's ordered. They're basically handed those drugs.
Yeah,
they're being told like you gotta bring in this amount of people to take.
There was some, a few years ago there was a district in New York. I know This American Life did a thing on this district where they were basically saying you have to reach a certain arrest threshold at certain quotas, which ultimately led to them having to get rid of the quotas. And this was also during stop and frisk and all that. So they were just ginning up reasons to arrest generally Black people and Hispanic people. I think it was a district in Queens, but I'm not certain.
It's so nice. It's so nice that literally I have a target on my head every time I walk out the door.
Oh yeah. Well, and this is one of the reasons why decriminalization of marijuana on the federal level is so important. I don't give a shit. I'm probably not gonna smoke it. But the thing is, it's still used as a pretext for searching someone's car. So what they do is they stop you for some, pretext. You're a tail light out, you improper lane change, whatever bullshit, and then they say, "Oh, I smell marijuana." Then they can get you going.
There was a video of and it was posted by someone with right-wing leanings, as if it was a good thing or funny that a guy was pulled over, and it was a state where it's not completely legal for recreational use, but you can get it from a dispensary, and that the cop was just fuming and pissed off because the guy had flipped him off, and it was just having this.
Oh, here in New Jersey. It was here in New Jersey, the one where they searched the guy by the side of the road.
Well, the cop was having a conniption and bitching the guy out, and then he just looked for and found a technicality to arrest him on, and it was he had the container from the dispensary, but the pot wasn't in the container. So it was from a dispensary, just wasn't in the container, and he used that as a pretext to arrest him because he was pissed off.
Guys, just a question on the topic. How many years can you get for weed in the United States? Like wherever?
Depends on the state, depends on if you're arrested by the Fed.
Yeah, I mean, I am asking about the maximum amount. Like, how many is it, like the ballpark?
It depends on whether you consider distribution or not.
Yeah, it depends on the amount.
If you have a personal amount, it's going to be pretty short. But if you have a large amount, then... Now, the thing is also, though, it's not so much they're trying to bag you from marijuana. It's a pretext to search your car. So this way they can say, I smell weed, and it's a federal crime, even if it's not a crime in your state. So that this way they can bring you, then they'll bring the drug dogs, and they can make the dog get a hit because they have ways to basically trick the dog into doing it. And then they get to search your car, and they're just looking for something, anything that they can charge you with. So they're basically fishing for charges.
I mean, I have got my car kind of searched once. It was weird. It was probably one of the first times that I even got stopped by police, and I was nervous because I was a young driver and stuff. And then basically they started looking through my car. Luckily, they didn't plant anything. But I mean, the law requires some witnesses to look and they did nothing like that. I was afraid to argue with them because they were big and scary guys, and that's basically, I believe that's called bullying. I don't know.
That's why you should keep your car a mess. Have fast food wrappers just piled up to the rafters.
I mean, that would probably not stop them.
Yeah. Something like the state of my room right now, and yes,
exactly. Keep a complete mess. They're only going to search for so long before they finally say,
the funny thing is that I was stopped by those guys when I was back on my way from some guy's apartment to my apartment, and the thing is that evening I was helping that guy to move an apartment. So basically I was like carrying a lot of his monitors. He has 3 monitors set up and a computer and a lot of dishes, and basically his whole apartment I was carrying on board. We had to take 3 turns, 2 guys to carry that to his floor, and I was going back from him. Imagine what that would look like if I was going with a lot of this stuff and they decided to search my car. That would be fucked up because I had it all in a scotch tape and it was all packed. So if they decided to unpack it, I don't know how we would even bring it up to his apartment. So that was lucky.
Not to derail the conversation, but earlier when Chris was describing the cop, he used the word conniption, and I really feel like that's a word that has fallen out of use.
It's a wonderful word. It's a fine word.
It's a 50-cent special for sure.
Can you repeat the word? I kind of misheard it.
Joe?
Sesquipedalian.
Yeah. Joe, I'll tell you what. Your tactic works great unless you have a customer who never says anything. One of my customers used to be national security agencies. I'm sure I've told you guys before. And I used to drive over there because I had to carry calibration equipment with me. And they use dogs. Very nice dogs, but they use dogs. So, I mean, if you want to get through their security, you better have a nice car, and it better be clean.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, I've stayed quiet about this for most of the stream because I know my tangents can be a little bloated. I just want to say something about Trump. He's not going to go quietly. He's going to pull every trick he can to try to stay in. And the darndest thing is, yes, I do see some Republicans who sincerely don't see anything wrong with it. They're like, oh, you guys are just being alarmist. But I also see some who, they see what all this is. They know it's fascism, and they're gleeful about it. They're like, yes! Mm-hmm. And it just made me think back. Recently I saw this segment by, Cenk, and he basically went, who the hell looks forward to being ruled by a fascist dictator? And his answer was... we just have a bunch of morons at any given moment. Sorry, I just want to finish.
Sorry.
Fascists are actually fairly simple people. A lot of them are just morons who go about life not knowing what to do with their hands. They're like, somebody tell me what to do. Oh, thank God we have a fascist dictator. Almost had to think for myself for a minute there. So we have people who enjoy licking somebody else's boots. They need a strong man in their life ordering them around to be fulfilled. I'm just
where do you think this Jesus take the wheel thing comes from in the first place? I mean, theism is essentially fascism.
The ironic part of what you're saying is true, is that they're the ones who think that they're the strong individualists. But they're
and
not.
They project all of that onto the left. They say, well, you guys just want to suck the teat of the government, because they think of the government as if it's a person and not something that we all take part in.
Well, as opposed to an extension of all of our wills.
There's a great book by the German psychologist Erich Fromm called Fear of Freedom that is centrally about this.
I mean, sometimes government is a person, and a very easily offended person at that. I mean, look at us. It's like, yeah.
Talking about the current. One thing Lauren just said for a second, though, I'm just interested, because you said like, theism is akin to fascism, and I'm curious on your definition of theism. Because personally, I'm agnostic, and I'm pretty much atheist, but I just can't kind of flip that switch to go fully there. But I try to be generally respectful of people's religious views as long as they don't impact mine. But I do think theism has a particular meaning that you're using it in, and I'm just curious as to get your take on it.
I'm a Voyagerist, so
Voyager?
As in Voyager 6.
Yeah.
I believe the official definition here is probably that it's a strong belief in a God that takes like significant part in whatever happens on Earth. But that probably like it was probably talking the person was probably talking about like monotheistic religions and monotheistic religions that are specifically centered on this God being always right, always the strongest, always the guy in the room because he is omnipresent and always taking part in everything. And basically that's like the ultimate dictatorship, isn't it? It's like, and I heard the argument from, I believe it was the Thinking Atheist podcast, and I had that argument that basically if a God is in every single room looking at every single rape that's going on, and he's not doing anything about it, he's not the silent witness. He is the silent like co-conspirator, and I forgot the word. He basically also
he's a voyeur.
Yeah, and he's basically also to blame for the crime if he had every single possibility to prevent it, every single possibility to make it never happen, every single possibility to cancel it once it has happened, and he didn't.
Someone told me, as someone with autism, an old white pastor told me that my autism was because of the fall of man.
Fuck
that's the blanket excuse they use for anything that goes wrong. That's it's a fallen world, so you've got mumps and measles and AIDS and lions and tigers and bears.
I mean, lions are kind of nice.
This is why I didn't vote in 2016. No, not as a personal choice. I didn't think I was allowed to vote because of my autism. And apparently this rhetoric is widespread enough that entire grassroots organizations have sprung up around the country just to let people like me know that our disabilities do not disqualify us from participating.
I mean, autism is not like schizophrenia or something. It's not even considered a disease. I believe it's like it's a disorder, but everybody has a disorder.
Right, but schizophrenia doesn't even disqualify you from voting in this country. I mean, that's honestly, I'm hearing you say that, Nick, and Isaiah. It's shocking to me that honestly that's even a thing, that people don't realize that they're allowed to vote. Because
I think that rhetoric is spread just as a form of voter suppression because people like me do tend to be more left-leaning. So they just tell us, no, you can't vote because you're autistic, because you're retarded.
Also,
a thing that doesn't disqualify you, regardless of how low your intelligence is.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, also, just like Zaya said, the foreign voter repression of like Governor DeSantis, like with the protest laws of jailing people, as well as like previously in the conversation about marijuana and arresting black and brown people mostly, which was the whole point that like Richard Nixon did for the drug and war, and why he used the word marijuana,
as opposed to cannabis. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was so that prisoners are not allowed to vote, and I think give prisoners back the right to vote would be like huge for like a democracy in this country. Because
that's what Michael Bloomberg is doing.
Trying to, yeah.
One of the charities that I support.
I don't think he's alone in that either.
No.
What you're saying?
Go ahead.
I would just say that one of the charities that I support is the Last Prisoner Project, which is one of the organizations that's trying to expunge people's records and get people out of jail for minor marijuana offenses.
Prisoners' rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Returning the franchise to prisoners and to, released felons. Like that's one of those it's one of those issues that I just don't understand why it's even controversial. I mean, I get it, but there's no good reason.
If you read Facebook, there's all these quote unquote Christians who are like, well, if they shouldn't have broke the law, they would have not gotten in trouble. And I'm like, you fucking...
What about forgiveness?
One of the things you need to keep in mind as it comes to Christianity is it is a punishing culture. I mean, where do you... they lean on hell so heavily, and they figure, one offense is the only offense that you need to have in order to justify, taking you down for 100 million, billion, trillion, et cetera, a year.
They don't actually care about reducing abortions. They just want people who have abortions to be punished.
Yeah.
They hate women being promiscuous and want to punish them.
This is the irony of the right wing, though, because on the one hand, again, they're anti-government, so you'd think they'd be for decriminalizing as many things as possible, because at least they talk that way.
Let's face it, right wing is not anti-government. They are
I know.
anti-government.
That's the whole point, is that they claim to be, but then they're perfectly fine with something going up the river for like minor offenses that don't harm anybody at all.
Well, the thing about abortion is that it's in some ways kind of racist, and not racist as in discriminatory, but it's basically saying white people shouldn't get abortions, but everyone else, whatever happens. Because if Republicans were so pro-life, they would combat climate change. They would fix the gun problem. They would solve youth violence in schools.
For real.
They would have good resources for jobs and all that stuff. So they're not pro children. They view children as real estate. So they can get certain perks from the government.
They only care about you
and it's racist because they put white children over children, like let's say in the Middle East that gets killed by drone strikes. You don't hear any of them say anything about, well, what about the poor Iraqi or Pakistani kids that die from the drone strikes? But it's always, if the kid looks like John Walsh or John Benet Ramsey, that kid shouldn't be aborted. But if the kid looks like, a person of color, oh, was their mom a crack mom? Was it a crack baby?
Right.
Like did they have the kid on a wedlock?
That's true. I agree with everything you just said. One thing I just want to...
Yeah, I'm going on a rant. I'm sorry.
No.
That's okay. It's okay. It's a good rant.
I agree with everything you said. The only thing I would just add to it, though, is that the anti-abortion policies within the United States themselves are also racist in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Well, of course they are.
Yeah.
I have one word for those people. It's basically traditionalist. That's the worst thing about them.
My point is that if Roe v. Wade is overturned and we go to a point where abortions become illegal, frankly, the wealthy, which translates generally to more white people, are still going to be able to get reasonably safe abortions.
Yeah. Let me throw something out in the midst of this, because I'm again, being one of the oldest people here, I remember Roe v. Wade, and make no mistake about it, abortions were happening pre-Roe v. Wade. They were happening way on the down low, and they were happening frequently in the United States, although you get some of these people who talked about traveling to Scandinavia or whatever it was back in those days, because that was the only way they could be absolutely certain of getting a controlled procedure where the police were not going to interfere, do whatever else have you. What Roe v. Wade did, more than any other thing, was to level the playing field. It made it possible for poor people to be able to handle and be able to execute family planning without having to look over their shoulders or risk, the traditional coat hanger type abortion. And trust me, coat hangers and that shit was for real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Thank you for saying
it's also racist. It's also racist.
Yeah.
What's going to end up happening if it gets overturned? Now that's not going to make it illegal around the country, but what it is going to do is force individual states to pass laws to decriminalize it. So what's going to happen is the blue states are going to decriminalize it, and then the red states won't. And actually, a lot of the poorest red states have large minority populations, large black.
And also poor white. Poor white. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We don't talk about poor white people in this country. This is sad for the Democrats because the Democrats can tap into this white base, but we never talk about poor white people in the country.
They barely talk about class.
Yeah, it's awful.
But that's true, and because you think that the bottom 22 economies in the country are red states, and probably half of them have almost shockingly poor white.
Well, I mean, it gets to the point of that you have generally the red states voting against social programs that ultimately
Again, guys, can I say the last thing before we all get finished here, because I see the time and it's going to end.
I gotta run.
The end is nigh.
Bye, Isaiah.
In a few minutes, but one more thing. If people research the Reverend William Barber II, if any of you guys know who that is,
doesn't ring a bell.
So he's a black preacher from I think North Carolina that does something called Moral Majority.
I've heard of him actually.
Yeah, so he's
probably
pretty
from you though.
But go ahead. Finish what you were going to say.
Are you
Whoever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say that I heard about that guy, but probably from you, and I've read about that guy, and that's kind of nice. You probably present him. It's your guy.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So yeah, as was just mentioned, we are over an hour. And what I wanted to say actually to finish is that again the problem. No, I was talking to Isaiah because again Isaiah is such a nice guy, and I really want him to take more part in these conversations. He's kind of shy, and I want him to be like more like ranty and stuff. That's amazing, and he does that in an amazing way. And what I wanted to say is that the worst thing I find about those guys you're talking about, the red guys, like the red state guys and the conservatives and stuff, is that they are traditionalist, and that they take some weird old time things that they were told as kids, and they put it to absolute. And basically I position myself as three things. I don't even want to say I am extremely like left-wing or something, because I am, but that's not the main thing. The three main things that I think about me is the greatest, is like about my position, not about me personally. I'm not probably better than any of you, but the position. First, I'm globalist. It's everything for the humanity and against the division, because again, the borders were just like they were drawn by apes or monkeys, and that's all.
White people.
They're basically the same. And the second thing, I am a pacifist, and I know that some people won't agree with me here, but I think that a murder or a killing or a homicide can be justified, but it must be justified on a personal basis. If you kill one person, you must totally know why you're doing it, and you must totally know why is it better that way than the other way. But if you have an idea that justifies killing 100 people, 1,000 people, or more, or whatever, it's probably the idea that should die, not the people, because it must be justified on individual basis. That's what I think.
The ironic thing about America is that whenever they talk about violent protests, it's like, it's violence and it's destroying property. But America's a violent culture that loves destroying property, whether it's here or abroad. So you can't get mad if a Starbucks gets burned, but then you think supporting drone strikes, destroying someone else's stuff is a good idea.
War is murder. Right. I was talking about that for the whole time. War is murder.
Yeah, I know.
You're right, but just think of the violence that perpetrated against minorities here in this country. I'm like, how much violence do we have to take before it's justifiable for us to do so in kind? I mean,
again, so I just wanted to finish. Sorry for taking so much of your time, but again, about violence is that war is murder, and killing can be justified but not good. No killing is good. It can be necessary, but only of one person on a case-to-case basis. I am not for death penalty, but there are just some fucked up people who, are violent themselves. And the third thing that I wanted to say is being progressive. And progressive is for everything future and against everything past. Not everything literally, but we have to move, guys. We have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
We can't stay and stick to whatever was told to us by our parents, because some of that stuff is just wrong. Humanity is evolving, and we got to remember that. So thank you for listening. Sorry for taking so much of your time.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talks.
So okay, before I wrap up, there's a quote I want to read, because what Vladimir just said and then what Joe also just said, sort of in response to that, reminded me of this. I just posted this on Facebook the other day and retweeted it on Twitter. It's a quote from Rod Serling that was quoted and posted by his daughter, and it's relevant to what was just being spoken about, especially what Joe said about, how much violence do we have to take before it's okay for us, to do something about it. And Rod Serling said, "Everything inside me that has to do with principle and honor and ethics dictate that I not turn my back on the legitimate aspirations of a people because they've run out of patience and run out of acquiescence. Crime in the streets is one thing, but the prolonged, continuous crime of the denial of freedom is a more costly and a much more serious departure from justice." So,
wow, that's deep.
So there you go. Serious.
Well, in good news, the Dwayne Johnson has just endorsed Joe Biden.
I saw that.
So
I saw that. Also, last thing before we wrap up the stream, this is a personal request from Dana, who is a very good friend of mine, who a few of you know. Joe, Serious Mind, she really wants to know if you have ever played 7th Sea, which is a thing I do not know what it is, but apparently you do.
Say it again.
7th Sea. Have you ever played 7th Sea?
7th Seed?
Yeah.
No, but I would if I was encountered it.
Okay, so there you go. She just wanted to know.
I mean, Steve, she is so active on the streams. Why is she not here?
She will. Just patience, my friend.
I also got my mail-in ballot the other day too, through rain and.
Oh, good.
So I got that.
Yeah. Still waiting for mine.
Yeah,
so I might just have to don my mask and show up in person.
Well, pardon me for being a traditionalist, but I'm going to the goddamn polls on November the 3rd, and anybody wants to try to stop me had better strap it on.
That's voter intimidation.
I'm gonna poll like I do every year when I see people campaigning too close to the thing. I've done multiple times, called up and said, hey, someone's violating the exclusion zone, and they get taken care of.
I'm getting my mail-in ballot, but I'm going to take it physically to the election office and drop it off.
Yeah, me too.
I'll take it to a ballot box. There's plenty of those, and Washington State won't have any problems with USPS. Anyway, let's end
and
this.
then just gotta sit here and watch, because some people just like to see the world burn.
Also,
all day.
To some random geek, yes, I'm doing okay. I wasn't going to go to war, whatever I was saying.
Well, we can discuss that off air. So yes, but,
yeah.
I mean, the way I said, some violence is justified. I've seen some random geek a video about that army guy. He's probably seen it.
Let's end the stream.
We're going to end the stream now.
Right.
Yeah.
This is going to end.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Does that mean I missed my chance to do the rock the vote joke?
Go ahead. We'll end on the rock the vote joke. Go ahead.
When you're talking about Dwayne Johnson endorsing Joe
because
Biden.
Can I just say The Rock endorsed Biden, so can we please stop arguing about whether or not we should vote for him?
Yes.
The Rock endorsed Biden. That's all I need to know. He's the people's champion.
The people's champion. Yeah.
I don't want wrestling.
He is the most electrifying man in sports entertainment.
I played to Rock.
Can you smell what the Rock is voting? Can you smell what the Rock is voting?
There you go. All right, everybody, everybody watching, don't forget the charity links below in the in the description. Don't patreon.com/Steve Shives if this looks like fun to you and you want to support my channel and have a chance to hang out with me like this once a month. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, of course, to my patrons, both the ones that are here and everybody else who is not participating, for helping me, allowing me to do what I do. And we'll be back in a month to do this again. So thanks everybody for coming. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you. Bye, everybody.
Probably the last month of the Republic.
Let's end on an optimistic note. Wow. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Bye, everybody.